Welcome to Israel. Many of you have written to us via email asking for an update on what's going on in Israel. Many people believe that the war is going on, and even though there is much conflict, you all probably know about the many rockets and such that has happened, but the war in Gaza in force has not yet begun. Now, many of the Israelis, we are surprised by this for a reason. And that is, we had assumed that Israel would already be in Gaza now and have taken the fighting that has been by air and by sea onto the land, having entered into Gaza proper. But that has not yet happened. And let me point out that the Israeli military has said that everything is ready for the next phase, meaning we want to get going on this invasion of Gaza, but it has not happened. And why is that? Well, the answer is because of American pressure. Let's be very clear. It is the Biden administration that is pressuring Israel, despite all those wonderful words of support that you're not alone, we are with you, and the assistance, military assistance that America has provided. All of that is wonderful, but the problem is this. The American administration is saying to Israel, don't go into Gaza yet. And it's one delay after another, after another. And the time for action is at hand. Now, why isn't Israel going in? Well, because of this pressure from primarily the United States, the European Union, and other players throughout the world. What I want to share with you is this. As this is being recorded, we see much tension also on the northern border. In fact, just a few minutes ago, we have seen an incursion of terrorists through Jordan into the lower portion of the Golan Heights, very near to the Sea of Galilee on the east. So Israel is fighting now several different fronts. We have, of course, the rockets and also terrorism that is coming out of Gaza. In fact, there are still terrorists loose in Israel that have not been captured yet. So that's one front. And as I said, we see, for example, on the Iraqi Jordan border, there are Iraqi militants that want to come into Jordan in order to cross over Jordan and attack Israel. So that's another front. And then, of course, we know that not just in Jordan, but Syria, there has been attacks and such out of Syria into Israel. In fact, Iran has tried to bring in military assets into Syria, and Israel has acted by attacking the international airport in Damascus and also at Aleppo. And then we have Lebanon, where primarily Hezbollah is. And Hezbollah as well are sending terrorists into Israel. Thankfully, Israel has been ready and have been able to liquidate most of these terrorists. Also, there are rockets coming in from Hezbollah as well as RPGs and such. In fact, Israel's communication center has been attacked in order to try to cut off the ability for Israel to see what's going on in the border between Lebanon and Israel. So Israel has many fronts they are fighting. And I left out a very significant one. You are aware of the biblical terms Yehuda ve Shomron, that is Judea and Samaria, what most of the world miscalls the West Bank. And we see that there is great uprising there as well. In fact, this morning, Israel captured approximately 90 terrorists that were planning to go into Israel and commit acts of terrorism. So things are happening, and Israel, although things are prepared, we see that no formal invasion of Gaza has taken place. Now, when President Biden came over, he wanted to ensure that things did not heat up on a second front with Iran and with Hezbollah. But let me point out something to you. Now, the threat from Gaza is pretty much alleviated. Yes, there's rockets, but the rockets are much more infrequent. Israel has gained control over the borders around Gaza, and the likelihood of great danger out of Gaza has been severely reduced. But let me share with you, Hezbollah in the north is indeed a strong terroristic organization. They have, according to reports, 130,000 rockets that can be launched into deep parts within Israel, meaning that their rockets are not small ones like the Katyushas that they had going back around 10 years, but rather they are much larger now, supplied by Iran. And so the situation on the north is really the primary concern. And the one, if Israel's going to have security, it is the one that eventually we're going to have to deal with. In fact, some of the military experts in Israel have suggested this, and that is Gaza has been secured for the time being. Hamas does not pose a great threat to Israel now that Israel has responded through numerous bombings, also through the troops and tanks being at the border. Gaza has been brought under control for the most part. And now experts are saying we really need to deal with the greater threat to Israel's existence, and that is Hezbollah in the north. And this is what needs to be done. My hope is that the Israeli leaders, I'm speaking about the prime minister, those who are in the war cabinet, that they would make decisions that are not politically motivated, but motivated for the security of the Jewish people in Israel. And by the way, when the Jewish people are secure in Israel, it also provides security for the Arabs, for the Bedouins, and for others who make Israel, their home. So it's in the best interest for all of Israel's inhabitants. We need a strong Israel. Many people, and let me just address one more thing before we conclude, and that's this. A few months ago, I responded to a prayer alert by an organization, a believing organization in Israel. And they warned that civil war was on the brink, that this was a true concern. And I responded by saying, Israel would not have civil war. That thought is ridiculous. Believers should not fall for the liberal media's fear and ideas that they put forth that have no basis in reality. Now, this organization, it's also one that believes strongly in modern day prophets. But I ask you, in that organization that supports this modern day prophet movement, where? Where were the prophets who said that something was coming, that there was going to be, in a very few weeks, a major war that broke out that had serious implications? None of those prophets saw this. And I would suggest none of their prophets are really prophets at all. We need to be biblically sound. What's going on now is the beginning of what Daniel 8 teaches about Iran. There we find the language Medai Uparas, the Medes and the Persians. And what we see is prophetically, Iran is going to play a great destabilizing influence in the world. This is beginning. We need to be people that pay attention to Scripture, to watch what's going on, not only with their eyes, but with the Bible in our hand, and be people who are prepared prophetically for what is going on and what is going to take place. Israel, God has chosen this land and the people of Israel for a purpose. The enemy doesn't want that purpose. Why? Well, God's purpose with Israel is to use Israel, both the people and the land, to be his instrument, to bring blessing. It says in Hebrew, "Lekol mishpachot ha'adamah," to all the families of the earth. That's God's desire. That is his purpose. And we see that the enemy doesn't want blessing. The enemy, Satan, he loves adversity. He loves suffering. And in my estimation, when we look at the terrorists of Hamas, of Hezbollah, we see that these Islamic terrorists, they love bloodshed. They love to cause pain and misery and suffering to others. They love violence for the sake of violence. But Israel, we have seen over and over how the Israeli soldiers have interacted in a way that shows not a hatred, not a desire for retribution, but simply a desire for security, and have shown over and over a willingness to show kindness, love, and give provisions to those who are not part of the terrorist agenda and unfortunately caught in the middle. But be assured, there is difficult time coming. Pray for Israel as a nation. In fact, many people here in Israel are not referring to this conflict, this war, as the Hamas war, but referring to it as Milchemet Kiyum, which means a war for our very existence. These are serious times. Pray for Israel, that the will of God would be something that the leaders of Israel would be committed to. And that means a strong, a safe, a secure Israel with uprooting terrorists from our border. Well, I'll close with that. Thank you for watching this update. And as the days go forward, I will be making these updates from time to time about what's going on in Israel. Until then, may God bless you. Shalom from Israel.